Welcome to the Friday edition of the Giants Huddle podcast, brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the New York Giants. I'm John Schmeelk, always my favorite episode of the week. 3 different interviews coming your way today. The head coach of the Giants, Brian Daboll, will be interviewed by the voice of the Giants, Bob Papa. Lance Medow with a deep look at the Buffalo Bills with Vic Carucci. And then we're going to lead off with my interview with a Giants player. We're going to start off with my conversation with Giants safety Xavier McKinney. We're joined by Giants safety Xavier McKinney. Zay, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
All right, what's the morale been like here? Obviously, it's been a rough go to start the year. How's the team keeping things together in the locker room?
Yeah, I think it's been uplifting. Everybody's spirits have been high. We come into the building each and every day just ready to work and see where we can improve and be able to change the results on Sundays or whatever day we play. But it's been good, man. We know what we have in this building. We know what we have on this team. And, we just going to keep working and keep building.
As a guy who's a leader on this team, young veteran, how are you keeping spirits up and also just confidence up that you guys are continuing to believe in what you're trying to do and believing in themselves?
Yeah, I think for me, I've seen a lot in this league.
Yeah, you have.
I've been through the worst of times. I've been through some good times. So just kind of understanding and explaining to everybody else in the building, especially the younger guys, like it's still an early season. We still got a lot of time left. And although despite all the different outside things that you hear, like anything can happen in any given season, any given game. So I just kind of come to that mindset of making sure that we prepare the right way, making sure everybody's locked in and focused, making sure that we're sharp mentally, and then going out there and being able to execute.
So I guess that this is a wider question. There's probably no easy answer to it, but I'll ask it anyway. What has to change for the results to start changing?
I think we just got to keep doing what we've been doing, honestly. I think, obviously we want the results to be different on game days, but to me, I think we've done a great job of preparing each and every week. I think we've done a great job of, being in meetings and going through different things, meeting with each other, making sure that we're all on the same page. We just got to make sure, when those game days come, we got to have a different level of intensity and change the results come game day. So I think it's just all about doing all those things that we prepare and say during the week on those game days.
So when you went back and you watched the tape of the Miami game, what were your major takeaways from you guys on the defensive side of the ball? Yeah,
I think for us defensively, I thought obviously we wanted turnovers and we got those, but we still had some. It was a lot of big plays that we didn't want to happen that happened. We still got to be better with our angles to the ball, better with our tackling. So still just the little things that we got to correct, and we've been working in practice to get them corrected. But like I say, we just got to once the game day gets here, we have to actually go out there and execute it. So that's all it boils down to. So
let's start with the good part of the film first. What made the difference finally getting on the board with those 3 takeaways?
Obviously it was a huge difference, and obviously that's what we've been wanting. I've been saying, like, once the turnovers flow, they'll start to, they'll keep stacking.
And you the first one with the punch out.
Yeah, they'll keep stacking as we go. We just got to be able to capitalize off of it. But defensively, we just got to keep making those turnovers, keep creating plays for our offense to be able to get the ball back and put them in good situations, and just like I said, take better angles to the ball and do those things, and we'll be good.
Yes, you might have already answered this question with the angles. How do you cut down on the big plays? Because obviously last year, I remember we talked in the spring, right?
Yeah.
And we said last year, despite the fact you blitzed a lot, you had rotating cornerbacks, the one that you guys did a great job of was preventing big plays, both through the air and on the ground. That's been a little bit of an issue early on this year.
For
so
sure.
How do you fix that, both run game and pass game?
Yeah, I think, just making sure that everybody's all 11 and running to the ball, making sure that, if the first person don't get them down, making sure that next person is there to get them down immediately. So just being better as a collective group, as a unit, and we know that, and we see that, and like I said, we've been working on it, and just making sure that just practicing those little things to make sure that we can get them done, come game day, just so it's not the first time that we're actually doing it. We're making sure that we do it every day. So yeah.
So I think I'm seeing it on a film, but I want to get your take watching from your deep safety spot. Yeah. It looks like Bobby has really started hitting a stride the last couple of weeks, reading quick, hitting those gaps, and making some tackles for loss throughout some of these games. games?
Yeah, no, Bobby's been great for us, man. He's a hell of a leader. He's a guy on the field where, he's always communicating, he's always talking. So it's always, super comfortable, as defensively, no matter where you're at on the field, if you've got that backer that's always talking, that's always communicating, because then he puts everybody at ease. So he's been great for us. Obviously, he's been calling the plays for us too. So everything's been great, man. He's been balling, and obviously, me and him, we push each other, and we try to make each other better, and we try to compete with each other. So it's been fun playing alongside him for sure.
And same relationship with Pinnock, I would assume. Obviously, you played with him a lot last year. Jay Love was your main running mate, but you guys played three safeties a ton too. So what has it been like growing chemistry and belief with him so you guys can pass off guys the way you need to in the secondary to prevent some of those big plays you're talking about?
Yeah, I think as a unit, our DB room is great. I think that we have great leaders in the room. We got a lot of great skill positions in the room and guys that can do different things. So it's been good, man, overall. Obviously, we still got some room to grow, but like I said, it's a long season. So as we go through these games, we go through practices, we'll get better, and we'll keep the chemistry we'll keep growing, and we'll be able to go out there and execute and play well.
How have the young cornerbacks been rolling with the punches? Because young corners, they're going to give up plays. It happens. DK Metcalf does his little rope-a-dope on Deontay, puts him to sleep a little bit, then Trey gets stuck one-on-one on press coverage on Tyreek Hill. Look, that can happen to anybody. It's Tyreek Hill, right?
Yeah.
But how have those guys kind of rolled with some of the bad stuff that's happened over the course of the year?
They've been great, man. They never get discouraged. They're always, just kind of going on go. They got a high motor. They never get discouraged no matter what. And like you said, like playing DB, I mean, it's going to happen. You're going to get scored on, at some point in this league. That's just what it is. You just got to have that, next play mentality. And I think the young guys have been great with that. They just got to, obviously they have their, hiccups here and there. But having leaders, me, Adoree, just pushing those guys and making sure that, they keep their heads up and keep going, it's been great.
Wink was asked about that play today on the Tyreek Hill deep ball, and he said it was a schematic thing that you guys addressed this week. Obviously, you guys aren't going to dig into exactly what happened because then teams can kind of take advantage of that later on. But when you went through that, were you guys able to figure out what went wrong and what you need to do to correct that moving forward?
Yeah, for sure. We knew.
On the field, we know
on the field what happened. So
is that a deal where just like a formation on the offense and the way they do things kind of just put you guys in a bad spot with your rules?
Nah, not really. It was something very, very simple. Simple. So we like I said, little things will get corrected and move on.
All right, let's talk about the opponent this week. Josh Allen's a different dude, very different than the quarterbacks you faced this year. What makes him such a challenge, both with his arm and his legs?
Yeah, he's an excellent improviser. He's a guy that's really great on the run. He can sit back in the pocket. He can make plays. Obviously, like you said, with his legs, he's big. He's like Big Ben, but athletic. He's got a rocket for an arm. So just all around, he's a great quarterback, man, and we have much respect for him. So it's gonna be a challenge for us, but it's no challenge how we haven't faced yet. So we face a lot of great teams, a lot of really good quarterbacks, and he's up there with the highest, the best quarterbacks that we played so far. So it'll be fun for us. Without
giving away state secrets, because I don't want you to give your game plan up, but he's had games over the course of his career where all of a sudden the ball just starts going to the other team, right? And he starts trying to press a little bit and he makes some mistakes because, frankly, he probably believes in his arm so much he thinks he can get the ball anywhere he wants. Yeah. So have you guys seen some stuff on tape where you're like, all right, we need to figure out ways to try to get him into that mode so we can create some more of those takeaways we talked about?
For sure. There's little different things that I won't say, but obviously, as DBs, we're always trying to, create opportunities to be able to, get the ball back. So we try to find, different details here and there to see, what can frustrate him and what can kind of throw him off his game, and defensively just as a whole. So that's a part of our job, and we've been, trying to figure out ways to do that.
And then Stephon Diggs, you watch him, and it's almost like you got to cover him twice on the same play, right? Because he's such a good route runner on the initial action. But then it seems like him and Josh, to your point on the improvisation, like once he starts scrambling, he just knows how to find space. So what makes Diggs so tough to cover?
He's crafty. When you get a receiver that's crafty like that, it's always going to be a tough day for you. Like you said, him and Josh have great chemistry together, and it's easy to tell out there on the field. And Diggs is one of the best receivers that we got in the game, if not the best. So he does a lot of things well, man. He runs great routes. He's obviously got great hands, and you've seen that for the years that he's been playing. So, but like I said, it'll be fun. It'll be another challenge for us. It's nothing that we haven't necessarily seen before. We've seen some really good receivers already, so it'll just be adding on to the list.
Yeah, you guys had Justin Jefferson twice in the last year, and I would definitely put those guys in the same type of category.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Final question. For me, the difference with the Bills this year is they've run the ball a lot more consistently than they had the last couple of years, where they're averaging over 100 yards per game. What is it about the way their run game has worked off their pass this year that makes them difficult to try to shut down both in the same game?
Yeah, well, when you can run, I mean, obviously that opens up the pass game a lot. So, and then vice versa, honestly. So, they've got really good backs, and they've got a really good O-line that blocks really well for them. So, when you get a combination of all of that together, obviously it works very well. And then, like you say, you get really good backs that can run the ball, that's got really good vision. Guys that run hard, guys that can make one cuts and get up out of there. So. It'll be fun, but I think they've done a hell of a job of just being able to do all of those things in the game.
Zay, good stuff, man. Appreciate the time. Best of luck Sunday night.
Appreciate you.
You're ready for a change. Payday comes early with Citizens, so go to that retreat. New You moves to the country. Now you're raising goats and launching a lifestyle brand. Are you ready for all that life brings?
That's Giant safety Xavier McKinney. Giant fans, I just watched this great new series with Eli Manning, Champion the Journey, presented by Citizens. Eli talks with Tracy Wolfson about life after the Giants and everything he's working on now, like broadcasting and his business endeavors. You can check out the series now at citizensbank.com/champion the journey. We thank Xavier McKinney. Now let's over to Lance Medow. He had a chance to talk to Vic Carucci, who has covered the Buffalo Bills for a very long time.
Giants visit the 3-2 Bills on Sunday Night Football for their fourth primetime game in the first 6 contests of the season. To help break down what to expect from Buffalo, we're now joined by a colleague of mine who you can hear on SiriusXM NFL Radio and a Bills analyst on WGRZ TV in Buffalo, also a Pro Football Hall of Fame voter, none other than Vic Carucci. Vic, always good to speak with you. Hope all is well. How's everything on your end?
Everything is great, Lance. Always great to be with you as well.
Well, let's dig into this matchup. And really, you got the walking wounded, I would say, Vic, on both sides of the equation here, because the Bills and the Giants are very much banged up. And I want to start on the defensive side of the ball for Buffalo. They've been dropping like flies. Tre'Davious White, Matt Milano, Daquan Jones. Who is the biggest hit in your estimation right now on the Buffalo defensive side of the ball?
I'm going to answer this 2 ways for you, Lance. I think individually it's Matt Milano, because I would put him, as would many others, right at the top of their roster of talent. You got Josh Allen at the very top, but Matt Milano is, I would say, arguably the second best overall player on this team, and certainly the best player they have on defense. And this accounts, of course, for Von Miller not being fully healthy as well. But Milano, just instinctive and such a ball hawker and a playmaker, and his leadership, even though he's not the most vocal guy, it permeates throughout the defense. And when there is an impactful turnover, and in their 3 wins this year, they really lived on that defensively. He's the guy right at the heart of it all. So that said, though, collectively, my concern would be on the back end, where you have Tre'Davious White, you had Christian Benford. Now he's going to be coming back, but he was out of the Jacksonville game. They felt that pain, and they really feel exposure to a lack of depth there, because Kaiir Elam, their first-round draft pick, who struggled as a rookie and then spent all 3 of the first 4 games inactive, a healthy scratch. It makes a statement that they don't believe in the guy. And honestly, when he got out there against Jacksonville, you could see the struggles when he was on the field. Dane Jackson is also on this injured list, another corner. So if I had to say what collectively is a bigger problem, it could be on the back end.
I feel like this is a bit of deja vu all over again, Vic, right? We were talking about injuries on the defensive side of the ball last season, specifically in the back end. Once Von Miller went down on Thanksgiving, the pass rush disappeared, and they had a hard time navigating the safety injuries. Of course, who would have expected Damar Hamlin to go through what he went through? But I guess what I'm getting at is, why do you think maybe this time around, given the injuries are happening a lot earlier in the season, is going to be different than what we saw in the second half of last season?
Well, I think the biggest difference in this defense compared to last season is the guy calling the signals and preparing the scheme, and that's Sean McDermott now. This was Leslie Frazier's defense previously, and he did, I think, a wonderful job with it for the most part, but there would be a lot of challenges that this defense dealt with, especially in the latter part of the year or postseason, where the scheme seemed to let them down, allow too many plays to happen underneath because they were so concerned with protecting the back end. Now, this is still a nickel-dominated scheme. However, I think Sean McDermott does much more with his folks up front, his guys up front, with stunts and games and moving people around, creating those mismatches. And I think for this particular game and for games where the offensive line of the opponent is lacking, and I'm sure that's an understatement to say about the Giants, they'll have that edge there. So whatever we talk about in the way of injuries, even those up front like Von Miller on a limited return, because he came back for his first game against Jacksonville and played well under 30% of the snaps. We'll see how much more he plays this time around as they ease him back into game shape. But Greg Rousseau was also missing in that game. Getting him back would be important. And some of the others, Daquan Jones out probably for the year along with Milano, is another blow to that front as a tackle. But I still think that the scheming of McDermott, and we saw it against Jacksonville, actually was held up okay. And on the back end, as long as you're causing the quarterback to kind of hurry his throws, as they did at times with Trevor Lawrence, be disruptive. AJ Epinesa stepping up. AJ Epinesa coming up big as a force at end in place of Rousseau. I think he finds his way into the rotation even more this time. I think those can be big factors.
I'm with you, Vic, and I'm glad you laid out the pass rush, because they lead the NFL in sacks with 21, and this is a very attractive matchup, to your point, against a Giants team that has surrendered 30 sacks. How much of the onus moving forward do you think is on them winning those consistent battles up front to make up for some of the issues on the back end, and the timing of all of this coming in conjunction with the return of Von Miller, who I know didn't play a whole lot against Jacksonville, but Vic, I think it's safe to assume, I'm assuming his snaps are going to increase little by little here moving forward as he takes on a more prominent role up front.
Yeah, Lance, I think it's all about what the front can do. I'm not going to say can't do, because I think it will have success, even a mediocre front against what I've seen of that Giant O-line. And the issues there that I don't see, sad for the Giants and their fan base, I don't see improving anytime soon. So I think it's a matter of winning those battles. Yes, Von Miller probably sees more snaps and plays more, but I would also caution for him the idea that if he tries to do too much physically, again, this is twice he has had issues with the same knee, major surgery, and I'm sure that's a thought. Even though I'm not going to try to get into his head or into the team's head, but I know there are those around the club who are concerned that if he's doing a little too much or gets that foot caught in a non-contact situation, that he could find himself suffering what might very well be the last knee injury he'll ever be able to have.
Well, and when you look at the dynamics of this pass rush, Vic, and if Von Miller is slow in terms of his progress and getting back to full force, You say, well, how is it they're doing that much better making up for his absence compared to, as I said, post-Thanksgiving last season? You brought up A.J. Epinez, who had a breakout campaign last year. He seems to be picking up where he left off. What about the addition of Leonard Floyd, who I think a lot of people thought would go a long way to help stop the bleeding from a Von Miller injury? And the numbers look good. How much of an impact has he made up front thus far?
Leonard Floyd has made a really strong impact. It hasn't been dominant game in and game out, but it's been strong enough. And when you look at the collective talent that they have defensively, it is fair to say that even though most of the season remains, if the injuries don't increase, and let's face it, they've been hit with a barrage in a matter of 5 games. If they don't increase, I would say to you, Lance, that they can hold up with what they have here well enough to still be a contender in a wide open AFC. I think, yes, Kansas City, we know they're a strong team. Cincinnati's been a grave disappointment. And I'm not even sure who else I would mention that is in the category of the Bills, as banged up as they are. Now, 3-2, a record, suggests inconsistency. And we saw that Jets game. And then we saw this Jacksonville game. Were there similarities between the two? Yes. They found a way to lose against the Jets because Josh Allen just kept turning it over. Against the Jacksonville Jaguars, I would say it was a bit of a circumstance, the decision to travel late to London, go there on a Thursday night, fly all night, stay up all day Friday, and have a walkthrough practice then, and basically have one decent night's rest. They were a sleepwalking team against a Jacksonville team that had like upwards of 10 to 12 days there because they had played Atlanta the previous week. And that was just enough, Lance, in a game that became very close once the Bills were making their comeback, to make a difference in the outcome.
We're talking with Vic Carucci, Sirius XM NFL Radio. You can see him on WGRZ TV in Buffalo as well, previewing the Giants-Bills matchup on Sunday Night Football. The penalties on the defensive side of the ball, Vic, jumped out to me in that Jaguars game, and Travis Etienne having some big runs. The reason I'm bringing that up is we talked about the Giants' offensive line issues. If there's any Achilles heel on Buffalo's defense that the Giants could try to expose, is it the run defense? Is it if they have enough opportunity to test the boundaries of the secondary? Where would you pinpoint perhaps something that could go wrong, if anything, on that defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, Lance, I would say both areas. I think you're absolutely right about the run defense, the vulnerability that's there, and they've shown it. And if you're persistent as an opponent, and this is the thing, can you keep the game close enough in the early going where you can stick with the run? And knowing Brian Daboll as I do and his play calling patterns and tendencies, if they find themselves in an early hole, which can happen very easily against Buffalo, if they pop a couple of big plays offensively, and then all of a sudden in the first quarter you're down a couple of touchdowns, are you still going to be able to try to run your way back in? It usually doesn't work that way in the NFL. But if the Giants can get something going with an initial drive, no later than their second one, of plotting and moving along in a steady way, incrementally, and if Saquon Barkley's healthy enough to do this, if the line can give them some holes, I also think it's critical that you try to spread the Bills' defensive front apart and find those interior cuts, holes where the back can kind of enter and then sort of take it outside. But the Bills have been, with Daquan Jones, stout inside. Take him away. Now it's Ed Oliver, Jordan Phillips, doing okay there, even after you saw Jones leave the game. And the Jags were slamming into that a bit. But once you saw those outside cuts, it was a different running game. And then to your other point, testing the limits of the depth of the secondary. And that's where, again, I think, depending on who it is it Daniel Jones throwing it? I know Tyrod Taylor's got a pretty strong arm as well. Will do things on the move more than Jones will, certainly. And maybe that combination threat of run and pass would be something that could keep this defense, Buffalo defense, off balance, and then test them. But I think it has to start with the running game. The only way the Giants will have success throwing the football, I think, is in concert with an established run game.
And I'm completely with you, because if they fall behind and they see 3rd and longs, it's going to play right into the hands of that Buffalo defensive front that we've been breaking down. You brought up Brian Daboll. This is clearly an interesting matchup because he's returning to Western New York for the first time since he became the Giants head man. He knows Sean McDermott. Sean McDermott knows him. There's the Ken Dorsey connection. I mean, everywhere you look. Are we psychoanalyzing it too much, Vic? Is there somebody that has an advantage here? Do they need to worry about changing the language and the jargon at the line of scrimmage? Or is that just a convenient storyline and you don't really think it's going to play a big or noticeable role at all in this game?
I think it could be an X factor, at least in terms of keeping the game closer. I would not say to you that, yes, because of Brian Daboll's connection with Josh Allen, the familiarity with him, the offense, Sean, et cetera, that you'd say, oh, wow, this is really going to be, this is going to flip the field to the advantage of the Giants. I would never go there because it's still about the players, the talent overall that's got to make a difference. And I'm sure Brian would feel that way every bit as does Sean. But he knows Josh. He certainly can tell Wink Martindale enough and has told him enough about what is usable or would work and what shouldn't be done for a scheme that does a lot of blitzing. Keep in mind, Josh had problems against Jacksonville's heavy blitz scheme. Jacksonville kept him a bit out of sorts and out of sync with that. Now, there were drop passes that didn't help, and he still threw for like 300, closer on his way to 400 yards passing, but it was well into the 300s and 2 touchdowns, had the one deep pick, but basically played a solid game in a loss. But the blitzing was bothersome. Martindale, here's the question. How much of it is going to be the reward blitzing and how much risk are you going to take? Because that's where this game could get out of hand because Josh will take advantage of those, and he's got Diggs and he's got Gabe Davis. But back to Daboll, yeah, he knows as much about Josh's strengths and weaknesses as anybody. Josh doesn't have many weaknesses, but if anybody knows them thoroughly, it's Daboll. Ken Dorsey basically, learned this offense at the elbow of Daboll, and he knows what Ken's thinking is as well. So that's going to be curious to me. I'm really going to be fascinated. I would have to say that how many times have we seen this? There's so many coaches that change teams or coordinators go, and does it come back and help? Sometimes more than others, but I will say, do you see the Bills do like a wholesale change of everything terminology-wise? I don't think that's where this matters. Brian Daboll left Buffalo knowing at some point or when the schedule came out, of course they're going to have all their nomenclature changed. It would be stupid not to, but it's more about what he knows about tendencies.
Now, speaking of tendencies, as we flip the script to the offense, last season, Josh Allen was plagued by red zone turnovers specifically. And I know that was a big emphasis this season, clean it up. And then we saw the Jets game and he was taking those home runs. They came back to bite him. From what I've seen, Vic, since then, the Raiders game, I don't want to say it was a conservative approach, but it seemed like he was utilizing the short passes, not trying to press the envelope. How much has Allen's mindset changed since that opener against the Jets? And how much do you think he's cleaning up some of those mishaps that he was plagued by last season?
Lance, I think he's become a different guy in a matter, and it happened really in a matter of, I'm going to say, an hour or a day or whatever you want to call it, whatever that impact was of that Jet game. That Jet game hit him between the eyes. It was the pronounced alarm clock, eye opener, whatever you want to call it, where he was forcing things, where he just felt, and I don't know if it was the stage, the Monday night stage, the idea that there was all this focus going into the game on Aaron Rodgers, which disappeared quickly, but the magnitude did not leave him or Ken Dorsey or anybody who I think was prepping for that game. I think they were still in this mindset of we've got to do more, and especially offensively, and I've got to do more. Josh Allen saying this to himself, and then realizing, no, play within yourself, let the game come to you, utilize your assets, run after catch. And there was, I know, a lot of conversation about that in the aftermath that had to happen, hard conversations in the days that follow that Jet game and then leading up to, like you say, that Raider game. And then beyond all of that, you saw, even in the Jacksonville game, I mean, you saw it against Washington, and then the Jacksonville game, though it was a loss, Josh was mostly the same Josh he had been in the previous 3 victories. He didn't look like, he didn't look like a guy who was trying to do too many things, wasn't trying to force too much. The Miami game was another example where, okay, was he going to revert back to the Jets version? No, he stayed, and that was a 48-point output. I mean, that was a team that also defensively, even though they allowed 3 touchdowns, defensively were pretty sound. And that's where I think Josh's head has arrived. And this is probably the big conversation with Sean McDermott. Let our team be, we're not going to operate in a vacuum here. Let this team, let this offense and defense collaborate. And when you do things, do it with a mindset that the defense is going to do X, you're going to do Y, but they have to agree with each other.
Yeah, in terms of cleaning up each other's messes or complementing one another, which is essentially what you're laying out. And I think that's a very valid point. So we know he's relying on his usual suspects, Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis, 9 of the 11 touchdown passes. I want to focus on the tight ends, though, Vic, and maybe this is a fantasy owner in me speaking, but Dalton Kincaid, okay? There was a lot of excitement. They drafted him out of Utah. He was essentially a wide receiver in a tight end's body, and that maybe he would take over for the absence of Cole Beasley, who coincidentally is now with the Giants. And it's not that he hasn't been targeted, Vic, but it's the depth of target. The fact that we're not seeing a lot of explosive plays, a lot of short passes. I guess what I'm getting at is, what do we make of this? Is he still getting a feel for the offense? Are they just scratching the surface? Why is he not truly made that big of an impact, at least off of paper at this point?
Well, I'll say that this is truth in advertising. And what I mean by that is, when that pick was made, when Brandon Beane made that choice and then met with reporters shortly thereafter, he explained that they basically drafted a slot receiver with their first pick, with their number 1 draft pick. And yes, the position is tight end, but this guy will run slot routes, will line up in the slot, and he'll be the bigger slot guy than you normally see. And he went so far as to say, when we're in formation, when Knox is out there and Kincaid is out there, it won't be so much 12 personnel, it'll be 11 and a half personnel. and I that stuck with me. And there's a lot of truth to that, because that's exactly how he is being used. The depth of those routes, it's not an accident that the feeling is he'll move the sticks for you. How many big plays is he going to make beyond that? We'll see. And by the way, he has been, as you and I are recording this, in concussion protocol. So that's something to look at. This particular game. Do I see him emerging more? Probably there's going to be an evolution, as you would expect for any rookie, to figure out more about NFL coverages and how they can be exploited and how he can be utilized in a bigger way. I thought we would see more, I will say this, more through these first 5 games of him in the red zone, and there hasn't really been a ton of that. And keep in mind, Dawson Knox is one of the higher paid tight ends in the league. They need to get their money's worth out of him, Lance. I mean, the basic business decision is, you draft this kid in the first round, yes, but you've got Dawson Knox. you're invested in Dawson Knox and wanting him to be as much a big target as possible, and he still is. Though he's dealing with a wrist injury that came up that was announced this week. So it's going to be interesting to see how it evolves. But I'm not going to lie, because I'm on the record of saying this, I didn't love that pick. I thought it was somewhat of a reach. Moving up to get him, it felt like a panic move. I felt like he could fall to them and possibly even lower than the first round. The guy that I love that they drafted, it was a second round pick, is O'Cyrus Torrence, is the guard from Florida who has been terrific. Now, he had 2 holding calls in 3 snaps against Jacksonville late in the game that were problematic. There were a lot of flags. I know you asked me about the flags, and I didn't really address that earlier. I thought that officiating crew was ridiculous for both sides, and calling there was an egregious roughing the passer, egregiously bad roughing the passer call on the Jaguars, and an egregiously bad contact downfield on Jordan Poyer on the Bills. It was a flag fest, and really for 9:30 in the morning Eastern time kickoff, you don't want that. You're still drinking your coffee. You're trying to wake up. But I digress. I think this offense is still built to have the biggest plays come from Stephon Diggs, from Gabe Davis, first and foremost. And Knox will be the next guy in line. And then those moving the chains, sort of like extended, what do they call them? The long handoffs type of plays, right? That we used to refer to that with the Patriots and their scheme, Julian Edelman and so forth. That's kind of what I think, at least for this year, what Dalton Kincaid's role is.
Vic, I want to finish off where you were talking about the offensive line, because there seemed to be an emphasis of boosting the interior. They brought in Connor McGovern from the Cowboys as well, and you brought up the draft pick. And there was also a goal of let's bring in some more conventional backs and maybe be able to run it effectively in the red zone outside of Josh Allen. And I think we've seen some flashes with Latavius Murray, especially if you go back to the Raiders game. What have the dynamics been like in terms of maybe easing Josh Allen's run presence and trying to emphasize some of these other guys to be a little bit more versatile in keeping defenses on their toes in those tight areas in the red zone?
Yeah, well, and here's the thing. I was boasting about Torrance's play. Up until this Jacksonville game, I thought the O-line was doing a terrific job with the run game. I think there was a combination of things. They didn't run. They ran terribly, and James Cook, their lead back, had minus yards. You can't do that and likely succeed. I think they ended up with like 29 rushing yards total. As Sean McDermott said, you don't win many games with that, and yet they were in a position to win. But they were at their best in those 3 consecutive victories with the running game rolling. And it starts with that line, the backs, Cook, Damian Harris, Latavius Murray. It's a nice combination, nice changeup when they have it, but they got to stay committed to it. I believe they will. I believe a big part of what you do when another team is blitzing is try to slow it down with those run plays, right? You just want to give them something else to worry about. Now, you can blitz effectively to stop the run, true, but I don't know, and I will give Jacksonville credit for doing some of that, but I also want to say that Ken Dorsey can't abandon that philosophy of trying to run the football and balance it out, because the best version of this offense is Allen throwing to 8 or 9 different receivers. He had a couple games in a row with 9 different guys catching the ball. That, believe me, that stretches the defense out. And then 2, the balance of the run game. And when they beat Miami, they ran the football 29 times. They threw the football 25 times in a day when they had 48 points. So that really, as a formula, kind of tells you, I will tell you that's not likely to be what you're going to see game in and game out from Buffalo, more runs than passes. But that really is a telling kind of stat.
Well, and to your point, it'll be interesting because they just played the Dolphins, the Giants, after the Dolphins went up against the Bills, and Miami pounded the football on the ground. They did have some explosive plays, and we know the Giants' pass rush has had 5 sacks and not a lot of disruptive plays and quarterback hits. So this could be a game, Vic, where maybe Ken Dorsey does think, hey, we can really try to test them in terms of their tackling and make sure that they can't disrupt anything with respect to the pass rush.
I would absolutely see that. Yes. I mean, again, the way I can see this game playing out is Buffalo just coming into it with more of this power approach. I do think there is some of that hit them hard in the mouth, the knockout blow early, discourage them. It's Sunday Night Football. It's a game where, with the stage and the hype being what it is, but if you get them discouraged early enough, then you can take control and do what you want to do. So for Buffalo, it is just what you said. Come out, stay true to the run, blow them off the ball, make those plays, and then feed off of that and start piling up some points, get them into a deep enough hole where now your defense is just teeing off. And I think once that happens, this could get way out of hand. My mental score of this thing is kept it in the 30s. I don't know why, because I probably should be in the 40s, maybe even 50s. I don't know for Buffalo, because it could turn into that kind of game. It could turn really ugly. We saw that happen with the Giants once already. And sadly for them, this is the kind of game it could be.
Yeah, especially based on what Dallas did, as you mentioned, Miami, and the Giants have had a very tough time scoring in the first half, Vic. They don't even have an offensive touchdown. It's a defensive touchdown that is accounted for all of their scores. So I think that definitely puts things in perspective. He is Vic Carucci. You can hear him on SiriusXM NFL Radio. See him on WGRZ TV in Buffalo. Vic, always a blast. This was like doing 3 segments on Channel 88, essentially. So it's always good catching up with you, and I much appreciate the time and the insight.
Lance, I'll always love talking ball with you, my friend.
You love turf. You're good at it. So you start a turf biz. Business grows, your savings grow. Become the most celebrated name in turf. Are you ready for all that life brings?
Hey, Giant fans, Citizens is presenting a new video series, Champion the Journey, where Eli Manning talks with Tracy Wolfson about how his elite quarterbacking skills help make him succeed in his post-football career. Watch the series now at citizensbank.com/championthejourney. Citizens, the official bank of the New York Giants. We thank Vic, we thank Lance for giving us an inside look at the Buffalo Bills. Now let's turn our attention to the head coach of the New York Football Giants, Brian Daboll, with Bob Papa.
And as always, we're joined by the head coach of the New York Giants, Brian Daboll. Primetime game in Buffalo against the Bills. Bills come in at 3-2, Giants 1-4 on the season. And Coach, I know you're focused on the job, like you got to get the job done, but is there any kind of sentimental feelings about going back to a place that you have fond feelings for?
Yeah, I think this is my 16th time being back there on the road. So, maybe 20-some years ago when I first went back, but great appreciation for that city, for that organization, but focus is with us.
Coach, with Daniel Jones not playing in the ball game, how much, if at all, does the game plan change against a team like Buffalo?
Yeah, I think you take into account who your quarterback is, but you also take into account who the offensive line is, who the receivers are. So, we've been working through that throughout the week and try to put the best game plan we can together for Tyrod.
Coach, Tyrod Taylor was a Pro Bowler with the Bills in 2015. Does his experience give you confidence that he can do a good job in this game?
Yeah, Tyrod's a pro, so he's going to go out there and put his best foot forward and do everything he can do to put us in a good situation.
Let's talk a little bit about your football team. Obviously, you've had to mix and match in a lot of different places, and you're asking people to step up. You've had a bunch of injuries. How do you keep everybody focused and on the same page when you're dealing with a lot of adversity throughout the course of the lineup?
Yeah, that's the job when you're in the NFL. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be things that happen, and it's the next person has to do the best job they can do of preparing, getting ready, and to play their best.
Just looking back at last week as we get ready to spin forward to next week, you get the pick 6. How much of a momentum switch was it when Miami was able to drive it at the end of the half and at least get 3?
No, that was a good play, but again, you're always trying to play well at the end of the half, the beginning of the second half. So to give up 3 and then they went out there and they hit that big one, they regained control of the game.
All right, we'll take a look at the Buffalo Bills, and led by quarterback Josh Allen. They're coming off a tough loss last week in London against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Josh Allen leads the NFL in completion percentage between throwing and running. He leads the league with 14 touchdowns. He's such a unique athlete. What are some of the things that make him so difficult to deal with, and what are some of the things that people don't see that make him difficult to deal with?
Well, his physical skill set. He's an exceptional quarterback that can make every throw. He's extremely smart, knows where to go with the football, and then he can create the second play, or at times with him, the third play. Staying in coverage, plastering the receivers, while also trying to do a good job of containing him when he does break the pocket is always a challenge. But he's done that for a long time, and he just gets better and better.
What about the football IQ part of it? Because you work closely with him, his grasp and understanding of what defenses are trying to do to him.
Yeah, I'd say that, and on having full control of the offense. That he's been there for quite some time. He's played a lot of games. Look, he's one of the smarter guys that I've been around in terms of understanding what you're trying to do offensively, seeing coverage, seeing defenders. He knows when to go ahead and take those shots. He knows how to check the ball down. He has firm control of the offense. You can see it. I've seen it for the years I was there. You see it on tape. He's one heck of a player. He's one of the best players in the league.
Stephon Diggs is third in the league with 39 receptions, 6th in yardage. We know what kind of playmaker he is, but it seems as if Gabe Davis is starting to round into form after a slow start. What makes Davis such a good second weapon?
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't even say second weapon. He's just a weapon.
Yeah, that's true.
The last game I was with him, he had 4 touchdowns in a big primetime game in the playoffs. He's very, very smart. He's dependable. He's got good hands, and he's one heck of a player. They have good skilled players with a quarterback that knows how to get him the ball, and it's a tough offense to defend.
Defensively, they lead the league in sacks. They're number 1 in takeaways with 13 of them. Now, they've lost some key players. Tre'Davious White got hurt a few weeks ago, and then unfortunately they lost Matt Milano, but they're getting Von Miller back. Defensively, what are some of the areas that Buffalo does really well and that you guys are going to have to be high alert on?
Well, I think they run a aggressive scheme in terms of, the 4 guys that are rushing are very good. I think Coach Washington does a great job with them of how to rush the passer. They're quick off the ball and create issues in the run game by their penetration. The linebackers fast flow downfield. The safeties, they shoot gaps. They create negative plays that way. And then, obviously, the turnover. They're a very fast defense. It's a zone defense primarily with a little bit of man-to-man coverage. They do a great job of reading the quarterback, and then they do a great job of finishing on the quarterback when they get those sacks to cause some strip sacks. They had 2 last week against Lawrence in the red zone against Jacksonville. So when you have a defense that can get after the passer and take the ball away, that's a tough defense.
Coach, final question. I know getting off to a fast start is always important for every NFL game, but when you're going into an environment like Buffalo in primetime where there truly is a big-time home field advantage, how important is it to try to keep the game stable early so that you can then settle into the game?
Yeah, communication will be important. It's truly the 12th man there. It's loud. It's very, very loud. And when they're playing well, it gives them a lot to cheer for, and it gets harder on the offense because of how loud it is. But we're going to have to do a good job of just focusing on our job, our responsibility. It's going to be loud regardless. So I know we've played on the road a lot. This is a unique place on a primetime game, like you said, and we're going to really have to focus in on doing the things that we need to do, our communication, our detail, and then ultimately our execution.
Coach, we appreciate a couple minutes. Best of luck.
Thanks, Pop.
Great job by Bob with Coach Daboll. We thank Lance and Vic and Xavier McKinney for joining us on the Friday edition of the Giants Huddle podcast, brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the New York Football Giants. We thank our crew. Don't forget, for coverage of the game on game day, check out our pregame show. It'll come your way on Sunday night at 6:20 with kickoff at 8:20 on WFAN right here in New York. And check out our special live Saturday edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live at 9 a.m. on WFAN here in New York. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time on the Giants Huddle podcast. Enjoy your weekend.